Okay, well, it's 103, and it looks like we have all the people that arrive here thanks to the Duke's people. I see Paul and I see Jim Blake. So today on the Vivo Apps and Tools calls, we have actually two demonstrations. We have a plethora today. So Mike Conlon will be up first. He's going to be presenting his triples inspector that he wrote in JavaScript. And after that, we're going to have a quick demonstration by Ted Lawless from Brown on the Silk Workbench. So Mike, take it away.
Okay, so you're going to show my desktop or kind of...
Yep, everyone can see your desktop. So right
All
now
right,
we can
very
see
good.
the show triples.
All right, great. Um, so we've had an idea since Vivo was invented, about sort of a basic structure for a Vivo app that would um, be independent of Vivo. That is, I should be able to write a Vivo app that um, that the user interacts with, that gets data from Vivo in real time and displays that data. And so it's a very simple kind of architectural idea of being standalone from Vivo, talk through the Sparkle endpoint, and display the results. And we've fooled around with various things to kind of make that happen. But Chris showed me D3.js a couple of months ago. And if you haven't seen D3, you really should take a look at it. If you just come over to D3.js, um, data-driven documents, you'll see a pretty spectacular set of graphic displays that are being made with a very, very powerful and intelligent JavaScript library that Michael Bostic created at Stanford as part of his PhD dissertation. And now I guess he works for the New York Times. And you can include the D3 library in a web page with this one script tag here. So it's learning D3. He's got a fantastic set of material tutorials, and then there are just many, many people using it. So if you do a web search, a Google search for D3 and look for any kind of thing, you'll find it. All of these examples, by the way, have code behind them. So this is a force-directed graph example, and you see it's interactive, and then he describes exactly how to go about doing that kind of thing. So it's an extraordinarily powerful library. There are at least two O'Reilly books on it. Interactive data visualization for the web, and then getting started with D3. Getting started with D3 is really a getting started book. It took me about an hour to get through it, and I pretty much had the basic idea. And then the interactive data visualization for the web is a much more involved book and much more useful. So you can get started. So what we decided to do was to write a little script that could inspect the triples that are in Vivo for a particular subject URI. So this is it's a very, very simple idea. So if we know the URI of something in Vivo and we enter that URI in that little open box there, what's going to happen is it's going to go off to Vivo, make a Sparkle query. The Sparkle query is ridiculously simple. It says, get me all the triples that have that subject, the one that's entered in the box, and any predicate and any object. And then display those triples in a web page. So let's give that a try. So that happens to be my URI in Vivo. That's for me as a person in Vivo. And if I ask to see that, it just goes to Vivo, makes a query, it comes back, and it displays all the triples. I have a very long set of triples, somewhere around 600 or 700 triples that you see, and you see every single triple that's in the triple store that relates to me. They're actually in predicate order, which is kind of useful. So you see them sort of by ontology. So here are the UF extension things, and so we see things that UF has decided to add to the ontology and then provide values for me. but you see the standard Vivo things, author and authorship and all of that. Every one of these things is a link, unless there's a literal value. So for example, if we see person in position, and we click on person in position, you can see what it's going to do. It's actually going to go to the definition of person in position, and so it shows you whatever person in position actually is about. And then if you click on a particular object on this side, it inspects that object. And so you see the inspection results for whatever was being referred to on this side. And as an option, you have a second link here, which instead of inspecting it, it goes into VIVO. So V for VIVO, and we can click on that, and it'll go into the VIVO presentation of that of the object that's being shown. So again, if you see a triple, this is all the triples have triples have this as a subject. You're seeing a list of predicates. Here's a predicate, and so the subject of this triple is me. Then there's a predicate that says I have a presenter role, and then I have an object, and you can either inspect the predicate, inspect the object, or see the referent object in VIVO by following that link. So this is a fairly handy thing for data managers, it seems, and our data managers seem to like it. Oh, you can see I have an ORCID ID. That's nice. And then you see literal values, right? So something primary email. There's my email address. A phone number is a phone number, right? Text I put in about myself, or it has to do with various things. So you see all the different predicates, literal values, object references, and you can go into VIVO and see those objects. So very, very simple thing. So do we have questions about how this works? It seems like
So,
it's a
so
pretty
Mike, you
straightforward thing.
yeah, so Mike, you created this because this is a tool that helps you program for other things that we do, right? I mean, this is a way to quickly look at triples. You're trying to decode what some of the things are when you're writing a program, right?
So this is a very useful tool for both programming and for data management. So for programming, you see the actual names of the predicates that you would refer to in ingest software or in other applications. So you're writing Sparkle queries or whatever. I always just look at an example, and then I see the actual thing that I'm supposed to be referring to. So it's very useful tools of actual triples that are in a VIVO for programming purposes. And then the second major use is for the data managers, so that they can see how the data what the data actually looks like in VIVO, and also determine if there's any problems. So you might be able to see that something had multiple labels, or you would see that a role pointed to a non-existent object, or some other data problem. Usually when I poke around on our VIVO before I find something that I would actually like to correct. Um, so, but here's an authorship. It shows you that an authorship has an author rank, and all different kinds of things about the authorship. If you decided you wanted to go see the author, that's me. This is the thing that is being referred to in the authorship, so I can go there and see the paper. This happens to be I think it's a presentation of something that was given in. Oh, it's the VIVO progress. That's nice. So there's the VIVO progress report, and it's a report and a document. It has a title and all of that. So you can kind of quickly and see very. And yeah, if you go to if you go to images in VIVO are a little confusing about how you actually have. I think if I go, yeah, I'd have to fool around that image, but images are not from obviously dereferenceable, but there is some way to get to an image. These links. So anyway, all the everything that's about my VIVO profile is in there. But I wrote this in part because I needed it. I needed it to program, and I needed it to do data management. I also to teach three. And so let's take a look at the source, because it turns out it's pretty straightforward. Um, so has something to do with in GoToMeeting, I suppose, to view the source of this thing. There we go. Okay. So it's a standard Vivo page. You saw the header, a lot of HTML cruft in here that has to do with that. So this is pretty much all just a footer to make it look like a Vivo page, and there's a whole bunch of junk up at the top of the Vivo page up here that has nothing to do with the application. Let's take a look at the application. So the page is here. And so the body of the page is almost non-existent. It basically says there's a div called header and there's a div called container. That's it. That's the body of the page. So as the page runs, it's going into the page using dynamic HTML, I guess. So you saw there were two pages. There was, and then the request did it get to this page where I received the very and so right here I'm taking apart the URI that I received from a page that did the get to me. So a very simple way, really primitive. I'm just getting one thing off the URL line and turning it into a variable called URI. I've got a JavaScript called format point URL that points at my production server that I was given, and here's the actual already encrypted, already, and you see it's a ridiculously simple Sparkle query. It just says select where get object in order by predicate. So thing. URL query equals the query in a format, and then I do a JSON call. And this is where the magic really happens. So Chris had given me an example of something that he had worked out for the CTSA Connect project, in which it an AJAX call to point for the purpose of getting back a bunch and then display that terminology as a word. I just used the same pattern to do JSON with the query string that and then I have a callback function that does the work, and the callback function is this thing right here, draw data. And that callback function does the work of taking the results of the Sparkle query, the lines from the Sparkle query, and making that we saw with the links in it that makes the kind of result that that we might use. And the full D3 here, very long either. Get that control panel out of there. Okay.
And the best part about this, right, Mike, is that it's not really a lot of JavaScript.
So can everybody see the source code? Excuse me?
I said, and the best thing about this is it's really not a lot of JavaScript because the D3 library gives you lots of functions. This really wasn't a lot of.
That's right. D3 is powerful. The hardest thing about D3 is get around the time, because I'm an old timer and I like writing loops and I like reading, I like processing records. That's not what's going on here. So it's a little bit of a mystery, at least it was for me. But here's the callback function. So here it ends there. So it's only from line 203 to 235. So it's at 23 lines of code. 24 lines of code. So not ideal to make this format. It basically says, well, go to the container tag. So there's a container tag. It says container tag and put in a div, and then it does a a piece of magic, and it says select all the div lines. Well, there aren't any, and then use the data from the query. So down here, the Sparkle query, query callback function says that the Sparkle query, the object that's going to be coming in is going to be Fuseki data will then have substructure.
Yeah, you're
If it
passing you're
looks
passing back a JSON data set from the Sparkle server to
heading
D3.
right. That's right. I'm doing a JSON. I'm getting back a JSON call. A JSON call. So back JSON data. So I make a query to my server. The Sparkle server returns object. That JSON object is the whole JSON object is going to be referred to as data, uh, uh, and and then the components of the substructure in the JSON substructure that is in the JSON object called results and called bindings. Um, and the results is sort of an overall structure, and then the bindings. If you haven't seen a Foseki JSON, I should have been able to pull one up, but it has uh, uh, structure after structure, each called bindings in a big long list. And there's binding 0, binding 1, binding 2, binding 3 of the Sparkle result. And then whatever you have in your are named. It's like a dictionary, name value pairs. So you get a name that's the name that you had in your select statement, and then then you actually get an element called value, and then the contain resulting value that you're looking for. So in D3, you point at the thing that where you want the results. So a container, put in something called conduit, go ahead and select all the div line, and that's kind of a D3 magic thing, D3 to see why it wants to do that. This is what it's going to do. What it does is it is set at the level that here I'm describing bindings. Bindings is a list. Bindings has 500 elements. It's combinations. Select all data and enter. And this append. It is telling D3 take every one of those binding rows and attach it to and every has to one of these of the bindings list. So once you have the data set bound to lines in your in the resulting output, then line is going to have 3 elements. There's going to be a predicate, a spacer, and an object. I select all the div lines. The div lines are already connected to the data. I do an append A, which actually appends an anchor tag. I give it a predicate class, which I have some CSS up here to describe what I want to look like. So I say for every div line, put in an anchor, make it a predicate, and then the href is going to be returned for the predicate. And the text that I want on the screen is also the value of the predicate. So that's pretty simple. It says whatever that predicate return came from the Sparkle visible text in your and make the href equal to that. So you'll click on it and it'll go there. For the spacer, I do sophisticated. This is that thing between the predicate and the object. It has a V, or it doesn't have a V if it's not a link. And so here I also make a anchor, and then I say that the href and if the value comes back greater than 8 and it has an HTTP at the front, then go ahead and return that as the value for the href. Otherwise, return dot as the value for these. I'm not going to link to it. I'm just going to return you to something. I'm going to return you to the page, and that's fine. For text, I do a similar thing. If the length is greater than 8 and it begins with HTTP, then I'm going to go there. It's a Vivo link. I'm going to put on the page. Otherwise, I'm going to put blank. So this creates that middle column of V's that go to links or blank go up to the top. So that's what that does. And then the object, very, very similar. If it's a then go ahead and call the inspector with that link. Okay, so if I have a Vivo link, go ahead and call the link. Otherwise, make the href equal to the current page. So if you click on it, you don't go anywhere. And if see, there's a bug in my software that should say greater than 8. Okay, if that's a greater, then go ahead and return the value. Otherwise, oh, that's correct. So if I actually have a value that has a length, return the value. Otherwise, return the text no value. So we have errors in our Vivo where there's actually a semantic assertion. You look inside the string, there's nothing there. It says Mike has email, open and close. There's no value in there. And so and you will occasionally see no value. And I thought that was better than showing a blank. Select thing that just selects the other ID and shoves in with a header that says 444 and puts in the URI. And so I can write the page with the URI that came in from the inspector call. So that's the code. It's pretty straightforward. Just binds Sparkle query and then displays 3 columns, puts out a header. And this is the JSON, the call that I need to get back JSON from our Sparkle endpoint. And that actually was all worked out by Chris. I just copied all of that and made it my own Sparkle query. So that's it. Questions, comments?
That's fantastic. And that's you put that code up on GitHub, right?
Yep, the code's right here. So there is an mconlon 17 GitHub, and it has a repository called Vivo Triple Inspector. It explains what it's doing, and it explains how to get it. And it is right there. Yep.
Well, awesome. I'm going to put the URL to this. I actually pasted the wrong URL in, Paul. Here's the production URL. I put in the staging one before, but I'm going to add this to the call notes too. So if you guys want to play with ours, you're welcome to play with it. But again, if you have a Sparkle endpoint and you want to do something similar at your institution, you'll be able to do it. I see everybody's muted, but are there anybody asking questions? Steven says very nice. I see him in the text. Thank you, Steven. Yeah, we found a lot of uses now with JavaScript and our Sparkle endpoint. So we're just really excited about 1.6 coming out, aren't we, Mike? So that we can put data back in.
Yep. Half a dozen visualizations going on that I'm writing with D3, and we'll share those too as they're completed.
Yeah, I know that Mike feels this is pretty mundane. I think this is a pretty exciting, very, very simple but powerful application of D3. But yeah, Mike is also working on a visualization that's going to blow your mind once he's done with it. It's pretty awesome. Having to do with a good visualization of all our orgs.
Do you have any visualizations you can?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
Do you have any visualizations you can show right now? Do you have any that you can show right now?
Well, I'm saving him for another presentation.
Okay.
So actually,
the reason I be violating the first rule of demos, which is don't demo anything you haven't tried recently, right? So no, I'll be back.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mike. Thanks for taking the time today. Next up on the agenda, actually, I have Ted Lawless here from Brown. Ted, I'm going to give you presenter here. There we go.
Okay. Can everyone hear me all right and see my screen?
Absolutely. I can see your screen, Ted. You're looking good.
Okay. So I'm going to show a little bit about a tool that I've worked on and off with for the last 6 months, and I think it's an interesting tool and one that could have a lot of potential if you are interested in linking your local Vivo data with either other Vivos or um, other sources on the web. So linking your university names, for example, to university names in DBpedia so that you can use the information collected in DBpedia, like home pages, for example, inside your Vivo. And the tool is called Silk Workbench. Um, it's actually part of a whole suite of tools called Silk, and they're developed the same folks that actually work on DBpedia. And I was reading recently a paper about how DBpedia is extracted from Wikipedia, and Silk is used at least for a portion of that. So it does have some stability, or um, in the sense that other groups are using it, so you can expect it to stick around. It's an open source project. You can download it from the link that's in the notes, and I use it within Jetty. The Workbench is a web application that runs locally, so I just deploy it in Jetty and run it locally. And to just kind of give you a sense of what it's like, I have it running here in my browser. And what you do is you take two sources of RDF data um, that you want to link up. And in this example here, I have, if you can see this here, it says Demo Brown to Florida universities. And so I have a file of local RDF, just an RDF file with universities from the Brown Vivo instance. And then I have a specification for the Florida Sparkle endpoint. So those are my two sources I want to match. And then I have this matching rule. So you can see that here. I want to match the incoming source being Brown universities. I want to find anything that's of type Vivo University, and I want to target it against Florida Sparkle endpoint and also match Vivo universities. And just to quickly go through one of these, this is kind of the interesting part, is that Silk has built in a bunch of what it calls transformations. So ways to basically process text to find matches in different sources. So different text processing transformations, algorithms built in. And this example, there's a few things going on. I'll show a simpler one in a couple of minutes. But you can see that you don't have to write any code to get started with this. You can sort of graphically assign inputs and outputs. If any of you worked with Yahoo Pipes, which was popular a while back, it looks pretty similar to that. So this is where you establish your linking rule, and you can, this is going to show links that I've already found, and this is sort of another nice feature, which is an evaluation interface. So these are all the links that were found. You can say, yes, this is a link, no, this isn't a link, and so on. It also has the ability to learn from your evaluations and actually generate a new matching rule based off what you've said is an actual link and what isn't a link. And you can rerun these sort of machine learning tools that are built in repeatedly to sort of refine your linking rule. So I think what I'd like to do, since we have just a few minutes, is I might set one of these up from scratch just to show you kind of how quickly you can get up to speed. And before I do that, does anybody have any questions so far?
I don't have any, Ted. This is Chris, but I
Hopefully everyone
definitely
can
would
still
love to
hear
see you
me.
set one up. We've used pipes before, so.
I have one small question.
Sure.
It looks a lot like it looks a little bit like Google Refine and what's that other one that came out of USC? Um,
Karma.
have you tried either of those? Do you find this one to be similar and or easier, or is this
So,
kind of got a different application than those?
so that's a good question. Um, they are similar in that they're web applications designed to run locally, and I think it does have a different sort of domain than those other two. Actually, Google Refine can do a lot, and it can do some of what Silk can do, but this is just for interlinking data sets, where Karma is more focused or is focused on mapping data into an ontology. And I was trying to look at the name. I was reading a paper that was talking about this kind of work, and it it used the phrase, which I didn't find referenced other places, called interactive data transformation tool. So I guess there is a general name for these types of tools. So I'm going to quickly set up a project to link um, university instances at Brown to university instances at Florida. And like I said, it uses RDF for input and output. So your data needs to be in RDF to take advantage of it. So that would be another difference with Refine, and that Refine will take all different types of data. So I give the project a name called call name demo. The first step is to add some namespace prefixes, and it does some caching, or it queries a web service, so it knows about most of the ontologies that I've tried to use so far. So you can see that VIVO is already available, and that should be the only one we need. Click Save. And then you specify your source data, and two options are Sparkle endpoint or an RDF dump. So for Florida, if I can spell, I'm going to put in the Sparkle endpoint. And that's just the same Sparkle endpoint that Mike was using for his demo. And then for the Brown data, I do have it set up. We do have a local Sparkle endpoint I could query, but I'm going to just run it against a local file. And the file is stored on a location on your machine, so this is running locally, and the documentation tells you where to put your files that you want to use for input sources. And I say that this is an N3 file. So I have two sources. The next thing I need to do is specify a task, and I'm going to call my task link universities. And the source is going to be Brown VIVO. The type of data I'm looking for or restricting to is university. And then for Florida, I'm going to go university as well. And then I need to actually establish the linking rule, and that's where the sort of interactive graphical interface comes into play. So you can see it should be loading up my data here. And it does do caching, so you can see all the Florida um, properties are listed here. So I'm going to match the label. The brown data I have in this sample set isn't very complex. It just has labels and types. And from Florida, since I'm restricting the universities already, I'm also just going to look at the label. But you can see that all properties are available, and you could end up doing some pretty sophisticated matching. And then I'm going to just run a couple transformations on the data. I'm going to lowercase all of the labels. And then I'm also going to run this other transformation. Actually, I think that's all I'm going to add for now. And then how do I want to compare these? I could use all of these different comparisons, and you can see that one is just simply equality. Do the two labels match? I'm going to use what they call the Levenstein distance algorithm, and then a normalized version so that it's normalized to a value between 0 and 1. And I'm going to say let's set the threshold at a 95% match, and let's say that each incoming label should have at least 5 characters. And then down here, I'm going to set a link limit of 2. So that means for any given URI, will only find up to 2 matches. That should just speed it up a little bit. So it's saved my linking rule. And it's intelligent enough to turn these boxes red if there's a problem with your linking rule. And the next step is to generate links. And these are appearing because I've run some transformations earlier today. But if I click start, it should, it's asking me where to output these. I'm only going to output these to the screen. So I'll say OK. And then it should run here pretty quickly. You can see that you get a nice progress bar, especially at this point. VIVO. Did I lose everyone?
No, we can hear
A
you.
second, for just a second, Ted, but you're back. We can hear you good now.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't. My machine was saying memory error, so I guess between WebEx and Silk, I overloaded my machine. But
you hit the
that
productivity barrier.
Was kind of the basics of what I wanted to show everyone.
That's fantastic. So what I like the comparison. So what have you been using this for? I mean, are you using this as part of your data ingest process?
So the original motivation is that we had lots of data from faculty CVs that was quite messy. You know, the references to names of real world things was very inconsistent. So we were looking for ways to sort of clean that up and to disambiguate it. So I've used this approach with university names, journal names, and it looks promising. But you know, given we're sort of focused on just rolling out Vivo at the moment, and hopefully it'll become a more we'll make better use of it moving forward.
So another question I have, Ted, is can you save those transformations and
Two
scripts?
other
Go ahead.
Yes, glad you asked that. Um, so if you can still see my screen here, this is you can export it, and when I start Silk back up, I can show you that how to export. But you can export it as this XML file, which is basically once you use the graphical interface a couple of times, you can see that this XML file just contains the information you entered there. And the interesting thing there too is that you can specify an output. So what that allows you to do is say run this comparison, this transformation, what Silk calls a linkage rule, and output it to this file. And then you can run those from the command line using this, a Java command, so that it allows you to sort of automate these, so you could run them, in the background, and then have some process to load them into your Vivo.
That's very cool. If you run into any Java memory issues or anything like that, because that's usually where Java trips us up.
Yeah, I have, and I think in that case it does some pretty smart caching. So like in that example that I was showing, it already had queried the Florida Sparkle endpoint for universities, so it cached all that and didn't need to query it again. I have tried to run this against large data dumps of RDF data from like OCLC for the VIAF data set, and I ran into some problems with that because it was a pretty significantly sized data set, so I haven't sort of pushed the limits. I don't know where the limit is exactly on that. Another thing I would like to mention is it also supports Sparkle Update. So if you wanted to run this linkage rule sort of like through a cron job or whatever, and have it write to a Sparkle endpoint, it can do that as well, which is kind of neat.
That's fantastic, and that's interesting. It supports Sparkle Update. Are you using your internal endpoint? Are you doing any updates to that?
Um, I have used it on a local, just an instance of Sesame that we have running to store some that I'm using to store these links we're establishing. So it does work well, but not the Sparkle endpoint that Vivo's running off of.
Yeah, we haven't dabbled in Sparkle Update yet, so that's probably something to do. Well, I've been hogging up all the questions. Does anybody else have any questions?
And one other thing I should mention,
We could use
it'll work against any Sparkle endpoint that's public. So one of these examples in here will query DBpedia.
Are you going to bring this data into your Vivo, like once you matched on DBpedia? Like, I'm curious to see what it would look like after you've kind of taken your data, matched it up with maybe DBpedia, and then maybe imported it back to try and allow linkages back out. Is what it sounds like you're doing. I'm curious how that actually will work.
Right. So one thing I have used it for, and sort of more than just sort of a proof of concept, is I've used it to merge local URIs. So we had 3 references, actually a lot more than that, to like University of California, Berkeley. And since I once you resolve your 3 instances to the same DBpedia instance, then you can merge those URIs or do same as assertions. So I have used that. I think for actually real world in terms of Vivo, um, you could bring in, as I mentioned earlier, homepage links would make sense so that if you go to a Vivo uh, page within your Vivo instance for a university, you would have a link to the homepage. You could bring in the overviews that basically a short paragraph describing the university. But I haven't actually loaded any of that yet. So like here's an example of a DBpedia RDF view for a university. So you could bring in what they call the abstract, the homepage. Some of them are linked to the New York Times topic pages, which could be nice to link to. So it's more about establishing these connections and then um, using them at some point.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I can just imagine being able to link into New York Times or the CIA Fact Book or DBpedia and being able to pull in more descriptive information. That's fantastic.
And another use with journals, if you have an ISSN link up to like OCLC, you could bring in keyword headings for the subject matter of that journal. So this journal is about um, this particular type of chemistry. So I think there's um, definitely practical applications that you could take advantage of right away.
Well, thanks a lot, Ted. That was fantastic. I think that's pretty exciting. I think that could be used in a lot of different ways, matching across institutions. Nicholas Rejak here was saying, wow, wouldn't it be cool if we could make a cron job that would go and check for all of our things that needed to be merged every Sunday and produce a report or even merge them for you. So,
Yeah, I would definitely, if you're interested in that, send me an email because like I said, I've worked on and off with this for a little bit and would like to, maybe put something in place that we can actually use. So feel free to email me. And this tool is very sophisticated, and I'm only really scratching the surface here. So um, it'd be nice to, start trying to work with other data sets that we could explore.
yeah, down here we're working on trying to produce an N3 file of all of our data so that we could work with it and do things like this and have it as a data source along with the other endpoints. Well, Ted, if you don't mind, I'm going to steal the controls back from you.
No, please do.
And there we go. And I'm going to show my screen. I just wanted to, one last idea here. We have our section that we usually talk about bringing your idea to the group. And I'm going to get to that in just a second. I just wanted, we did have a meeting for the upcoming Implementation Fest, which I believe has been scheduled for Carolina in March. I think the last week in March, I think the 19th, 20th, and 21st, or somewhere around there. Is that correct? Guys from Duke? And then there was silence. So I'm pretty sure that's correct. So one of the things that we talked about um, were the day before or the Wednesday before the actual Implementation Fest was having a hackathon. And everybody on the Implementation Fest planning call thought that was a great idea. And the previous apps and tools call, they thought that was a great idea as well. So one of the things that I wanted to do over the next few meetings, say the December meetings and the January meetings, is to try and flesh out a list of topics. We don't have to talk about them today, but I just want to put that bug in everybody's ear to start thinking about what topics. Thank you, Paul. March 19th to the 21st. I just wanted to put that idea in everyone's mind to start thinking about what the possible topics could be. Usually we don't try to control a hackathon, but we do try to give them interesting ideas and kind of a general category to say, hey, we think these topics are interesting. And mostly topics are like, we would love to see integration across, between universities in Vivo and DBpedia or something. Maybe that's even too specific. So anyway, just put that in there. So somebody added bringing BioT to Vivo and enrichment of Vivo profile topics extended from literature like BioT. So I don't know who added that, but I think it was Paul, and I'd be happy to talk about it. Was that you, Paul?
No, it's me. It's Alex.
Oh, Alex. Okay.
Nope.
So what's BioT?
Yeah. Okay, this is a very simple idea. So Biotia is a data set. We took everything that was in PubMed Central, that was full text open access in PubMed Central, and I want to emphasize on full text because we don't just work with abstracts, we work with full text, meaning the whole paper. And we annotated that with ontologies from BioPortal. So each and every one of the papers were completely annotated using all of existing ontologies available in BioPortal. And we also annotated the authors, of course, and we also annotated references and all that. And my idea it is that, for instance, if I have a Vivo profile, say for instance, my name at Vivo, and I happen to have papers in that are part of the Biotia dataset, or actually for that part of the PubMed Central dataset for that matter, then I could extract from Biotia the topics that reflect my expertise. So if I publish on stem cells or something like that, because the papers are fully annotated, then I could get the topics from those papers and enrich the Vivo profile doing a very simple process.
Wow, so that's fantastic.
Hi.
So you're up at Florida State.
No. Actually, I'm working for publishers. I do consulting for publishers.
Oh, okay, I got you. I'm sorry. We had if you can see my screen, I'd pulled up Biotea. Looks like a web resource, but it might not be the right one. So
no, that's actually the right one. I used to work there until August, and I'm no longer there. And now Biotea is going to be released to the open source. The transformation mechanisms and some other tools will be released to the open source in January or somewhere around that.
That's pretty cool. That's fantastic. So I'll have to read a little bit more about this. I hadn't heard about this before. So, in fact, I hadn't really heard that Florida State was working on anything with semantic web. I got Nicholas here in the back shaking his head like he didn't know either. So that's fantastic. What other kind
No,
of?
I
Go ahead.
oh, sorry. I was just going to say that I was the only one doing really that kind of work and working on. I work mostly on scholarly communication and semantic web in the biomedical domain. So.
Are you still in Tallahassee?
No. I was really never based in Tallahassee. I live in Germany.
Oh wow. I was gonna say, so we missed you. We were even in the same state, but I guess you were in Germany the whole time. So
No, every time I did try to catch up with you guys in Gainesville quite a few times, but by some strange reason, something was always between us. So.
oh, I'm sorry we missed you. So did you get a chance to go to that event that they just had in Germany, or is that come? No, it's coming up in a week or two, right? The
Koblenz,
in Koblenz.
right?
No, which event?
Oh man, see, I'm glad I brought it up.
I think it's
Oh, let me go look
Semantic
here.
Web and Libraries Conference.
Oh
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, we usually I actually last year I had a paper there because we are pretty much doing the same process, the same kind of semantic process that we did for PubMed Central, but now we are doing this for, or I am doing this for a couple of publishers here. So yeah, I know the event. Yeah.
well, they're having a I guess it's called I can't find the reference to it right now, but either the day before, I think they're having a Vivo camp, and it's free and open to the public. So if I dig up the resource, I'll try and send it out. I know John Corson Reichert had sent a reference out to the list.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
actually, one thing that I wanted to share with you guys, it is that I am actually from Colombia, and during my holidays now in December, I'm planning to run the first Colombian instance of VIVO for a university there, and that will be ready, I hope, by February or May next year.
Man, that's fantastic. You got to send something out to the list. We'd love you to come back on the call and do a demo for us if you'd like.
I would love to do that, and definitely, yeah. I mean, I will try to be more constant attending these calls, but I have been pretty much in between jobs since August. So,
well, we're glad to have you on the call, and I really appreciate you coming and telling us about the work you're doing. That's really exciting. Hopefully, you can make it to either the Implementation Fest or maybe the conference this coming summer.
I hope I can. Right now, I have to be honest with you, and I will put more effort on BioTia and VIVO as opposed to anything else. So, because that's actually part of my consulting. So,
well, that's fantastic. Well, we're here to help in any way we can, but this is great. Well, we ran a full schedule today, everybody. Didn't even get to the other business tab. We have about 30 seconds left. Does anybody have any other business that they'd like me to talk about, or maybe I can add to the agenda? Okay. Well, just to give everybody a heads up, have a happy Thanksgiving if you're in the United States. And the next call will be Tuesday, December 3rd at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So we're really looking forward to having everybody. Thanks to the presenters, Mike Conlon and Ted Lawless today. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to have 2 more presentations for the next call. I don't know exactly who yet, but I went from having no presenters to having a bunch. So don't be surprised if you have some new stuff to see next time we meet on December 3rd. Well, thanks, everybody.
Thanks very much. That was really helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
thanks, Chris. Bye.
All right, bye, guys.